That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
My executive producer nixed my plans to play the Wiener song there. She
Sorry.
claimed that it was not appropriate, so
Sorry.
I've held back.
It's not my rules, I promise.
It was
Because I would totally be down with that. I think it's funny.
It was appropriate, just not on air appropriate.
Yeah, there you go.
It was funny.
All right.
Sorry. I've ruined Mark's day.
I know.
The big
You're a
bad wolf.
buzzkill. I don't want to bring that
know.
up again because all the pro pot people will call in here. Forget that I said the word buzz, please. So we were informed by one Tony Colombo, who is clearly more up to date on current events than my friend Chris Arps here, that indeed Caitlyn Jenner did have gender reassignment surgery at some point recently. And he said just announced it the other day.
Yeah, as I said, I'm not a big TMZ junkie, so I missed that announcement.
Then whatever you do not Google Kardashian bathing suit right now. Whatever you just don't do it. Just save yourself the pain of looking at that. Because
Don't do it ever.
That is not something something came out today that you just don't want to see. I saw it on the Daily Mail. Just don't go there.
I don't believe he had the surgery done, to be honest with you.
Why?
I think he got tired of people asking him about him and bugging him, and so he just said he got it done. But I don't think he.
So part of the debate, not to belabor this, but part of the debate about this transgender thing is that you now have a movement in this country, a group of people who want to argue that gender should not be assigned at birth based on the genitals of the child, which is just about the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life.
That is without a doubt the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
But Tucker Carlson got into that conversation last night with Caitlyn Jenner. Listen.
You believed you were a woman from early in your life, from really in the beginning. You knew that this is who you were, but you couldn't come out and express it.
Well, yeah.
So, but does that mean that you believe that gender is biologically determined? Because that's kind of the opposite of what a lot of people are saying.
No, actually, a lot of people are saying it is genetic. I was born with this. You made a statement last time when you were with Jillian Weiss. You were coming up with this scenario of, a guy 35, all of a sudden, hey, I'm trans, and I'm going to go, be a woman now, and then I'm going to get federal funds for women's issues. That does not happen in the trans community. You are basically born this way. I've dealt with these issues since I was this big. It's not something that's just a whim. So
anyway, Tucker went there with him, but it still didn't answer the question. I'm still not convinced anybody's ever going to be able to say that you can't assign gender at the time a child is born.
Yeah. I think this is a simple case of someone who is very confused, someone who has some issues. Mm-hmm. And 20, 30, 40 years ago, psychologists would study this and say that he has some issues and needs some counseling. Now we're supposed to accept everything and not judge and be open-minded. And now it's open and free. I mean, I think this man has a mental illness personally. And, we're such a politically correct society now that no one will say that.
Yeah. People get fired up and offended, and some snowflakes. Speaking of which, Ann Coulter is supposed to show up on the University of California, Berkeley. Yesterday, she tweeted out a picture, a freeze of the weather forecast for Berkeley, and it showed like a high of 71. She said a beautiful day for a speech on campus. So she's showing up there today. I'm anxious to see what happens when she does, because all of the snowflakes are going to be out complaining about it. Bill Maher, who I'm no fan of, chewed out his fellow liberals because, he's old enough to remember that Berkeley was really sort of the ground zero for the free speech movement by the hippies back in the 60s, right? Yeah. And now you can't speak there unless you're liberal. That's kind of what it's come down to. Listen to what he had to say.
Berkeley, used to be the cradle of free speech, and now it's just the cradle for baby. Who don't. And I feel like, this goes on all over the country on campuses. They invite someone to speak who's not exactly what liberals want to hear, and they want to shut her down. I feel like this is the liberals' version of book burning. Yeah. And it's got to stop.
So he's come out with some stuff like that before on radical Islam, and so he surprises me on occasion.
Well, I think he realizes that the snowflakes and people that shut down free speech and people that burn and loot buildings when they don't get the election results that they want is a bad reflection on the progressive movement and the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Remember what happened here on the campus at St. Louis University when Colonel Allen West tried to speak. And they came out and they sold cupcakes. Remember that one?
And then he insulted the entire SLU body by saying that we were a bunch of little cupcakes who couldn't handle this. So taking little cupcakes from that, we decided to actually form a protest. And in response, we decided to make cupcakes, and we're going to be handing them out for free at the protest tonight, but we are going to be asking for donations.
Remember that dude?
Yeah. And I think a lot of these students too have gotten a nostalgia for the 60s and the hippie movement, and I think they've been conditioned that when you get in college and you get during those years, you're supposed to be against the establishment, you're supposed to protest and be against things. And I think they're just falling into that trap.
I would argue that's not the case. I would argue that they haven't been conditioned by their society, that as a society, we have failed them in learning how to deal with disappointment. Yeah. And, the whole everybody gets a trophy argument kind of pops into my brain there. Because if they run up against something that they don't like, they're used to society making it go away for them or make them feel better about it. And, that's not how our parents were raised, certainly, and not our grandparents were raised. And in the last 30 or 40 years, that's kind of crept into our society.
Oh, I definitely think
to where somebody comes to your rescue if your feelings are hurt.
Oh, I definitely think that's a part of it.
I've got some crayons over here, by the way, if you feel like you need a safe space.
Is an adult coloring book? That's the big rage now.
Very quickly, I've got a what's your take on Governor Crichton? We don't hear nearly enough from him, do we? Liz, did we put out an email requesting? We haven't heard back from him either. We've requested to try to get him on the show.
I think he has been a very effective governor. He's gotten right to work passed and some other things passed in the legislature that have been stymied. I think some people criticize the governor that they'd like to see him do more media and be more outward and talk more to the media and to the people. But overall, I'd probably give him a B grade.
So there's a poll out today showing what people think about certain things that are going on in the state. Do you approve or disapprove of Eric Crichton's job performance as governor of Missouri?
I do.
42% of people approve, 40% disapprove, and 18% just aren't sure. Probably because they haven't heard much out of him. Unless he holds a news conference to announce this Uber bill or something, or cut regulations, we haven't seen much of him, right? I think that's got a lot to do with it.
And he's such a polished speaker and everything. I like that he should do more media.
So another question that's interesting on here, because we talked about this a little bit at the top of the show. There's something called the circuit breaker tax in Missouri for senior citizens, right? So it's supposed to help you with give you a break if you pay property tax. Right. But for years, the loophole in that law has been that senior citizens who rent could also apply for the circuit breaker tax, even though they're not paying the property tax on whatever place they're living in. And there's been a bill introduced that would eliminate that down in Jeff City. And let me see here. It would take the money that they saved, it would put it into the Missouri Senior Services Protection Fund to be used for services for low-income seniors and disabled persons. And the support is 39% for that, and 32% oppose the idea, but another 30% are unsure. So I don't know which way that would go.
That's what I was going to ask. Is there would you be in favor of making an exception for low-income renters, seniors that were low-income,
Well, I
to
think
be able to still use that tax
I think
credit?
there's an income trigger on it anyway. I think you have to be low income to even qualify for it. And it would eliminate it from people who rent who really aren't paying any property tax. I mean, you could argue that the money that their landlord is collecting is going to pay the property tax, but they don't own a piece of property.
Right.
So I don't know. That's a little later in the next hour. We're going to talk to Senator Andrew Koenig. He's going to call me. He's been working on a compromise on this bill, and we're going to get his. I'm going to get his thoughts on that.
Compromise. That's a rare word when you're talking about the legislature or the.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the details are on the compromise. We're going to talk about that, and he's talked about maybe it's time to get rid of this Blaine amendment, the one that prevented the Trinity Lutheran from getting that money.
Yeah.
So that may be something else they're working on. I'm assuming that would take some sort of. That'd have to go to a vote to get rid of an amendment, wouldn't it?
I would.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
I would think.
I'm guessing. Well, Chris Arps, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you in here, my friend.
Yeah.
Have a great